This is Jason Shafton, and welcome to Frank Growth, the podcast where we delve into the complexities of business and personal growth and talk to couples navigating the delicate dance of building a family and a career. As always, I am joined in life and on this podcast by Alyssa Fox, brought in remote from a different location because why, honey?
Because I'm super pregnant. And as an added bonus, today my neck folds have decided to grace this podcast. It's really fun. I have so many different neck folds at this point that I can actually no longer wear necklaces comfortably because each of them just like pools with sweat. It's very sticky and uncomfortable. So I'm just barely leaving our house.
What if I got you a necklace for each of your folds? So you could, like, each neck could have its own necklace.
No, I think at this point we would have to do some kind of bedazzling.
You want to bedazzle your neck folds?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
I love it.
You know how people are like vajazzling? It's like, What happened? Can we neck bedazzle? What happened? What do pregnant women get?
And on this episode of Frank Growth, how to decorate your body.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I am, for one, am very glad that you are here despite your discomfort and imminent delivery of our second daughter. Thank you for doing the thing that only you can do. So speaking of babies, in this episode, we're going to be talking to Robbie and Emily Bent. I think the last time we saw them, Alyssa, was right before they had their first kid, right?
Yeah.
So they're the co-founders of Othership. Othership is a platform that includes a physical space and a mobile app to affect positive change and address the problem of loneliness and its detrimental effects on our individual and collective health. Othership encourages openness to the awe, belonging, and interconnectivity that animates the human experience for a more joy-filled life and living. I'm a massive fan of Othership, so we actually decided to invest in the company.
I love that they're bringing a social aspect to the wellness community. I think that is so unbelievably cool. And if I had to imagine people who could lead that charge, I think they collectively are some of the best to do it. Mainly because whenever we met them, I was like, I had no idea who they were. And I thought it was so interesting that they both were really into like nightlife and partying before. So like they totally turned their lives around and decided to kind of like lean into health and wellness. And I think it's even cooler that they did it before deciding to become parents, because I think it comes from a really authentic space for them. It's not something where they're like, and then I had to like put on this facade or like, look, I'm living life the right way. Like it comes from this like, yeah, I personally felt like yuck. And so I started trying to find a way to like still get that social high without having to go do risky things with my life.
Totally agree. They're like a very inspiring couple to me. I love that they work together. I love what they've built. And I think Robbie actually introduced me to cold plunging. And like anytime I have questions about doing a cold plunge, I would always text him or ask him. And then, as you know, I bought my own cold plunge and like I'm obsessed with it now. And I don't want to be that like tech bro, like founder cliche that's like, hey, I cold plunge today. But like I'll be honest, I love it. Like it's great. And I think just like finding the things that help you feel whole and healthy and well, like, and that they've built this offering, this product that lets people go and do that together and share in the collective experience. I totally agree. It's awesome.
Yeah. I think the interesting thing about it is like we talk on this show a lot about support. And I think like cold plunge in itself is not necessarily the end all be all. Like there isn't just one thing. It is actually
Totally
a well-rounded experience that supports other things. So like if you love to play tennis, if you love to play golf, if you love like whatever way sparks joy in your life to be active, it's such a great support to ensure that like inflammation isn't causing you pain or unnecessary injury as you do it. And I think for me at least, like I know being pregnant, there's a lot of like pains and swelling and inflammation in general in your joints. I'm interested to see if Robbie and Emily had a way, like did they, because there's so much information out there on the internet and it's so confusing. Like what did she do cold plunging? Did she just like dip her legs in? Like what did that look like for them, you know?
Yeah, I think that the point you're making that's really important is there's no one size fits all approach to your individual health and wellness. And so whether it's using the Othership app for breath work or going to their physical space, I think they have one or two in Toronto and they're opening one in New York, and like doing like group cold plunge and sauna sessions. Like everybody needs to find their thing, and it's what helps fill up your cup, make you feel whole, make you feel good. And what we talk a lot about on this show is not just grinding yourself into the ground with work and then coming home and like slogging through family responsibilities. Like, how do you create balance and live a, even to describe the description I just read about Othership, like animate and make your life full of joy. And you said spark joy just now. Like, if I'm gonna guess what this episode's going to be like, it's going to be about bringing that fullness of and richness of life and joy to people. All right, Alyssa, should we interview Robbie and Emily?
Yeah. I can't wait to see how becoming parents has changed their point of view on life.
Robbie and Emily, welcome to Frank Growth. It's great to see you both. I want to hear more Othership. I know you are growing like crazy, and I want an update on how parenthood has been and how you're balancing it all. So tell us, how's everything going?
Yeah, I mean, just this month, we found out we have a nanny, and she's not able to come to the US, and it's probably our son's best friend. And we're co-founders of this business together. And, prior to son, work 70 hours and no days off. And what's life for us now is, we have this nanny that's allowed us to both continue to work, and she's not able to come to the US. And so we found that out. It was a 2-year wait to get a tourist visa. And so during that day, I also found out, our construction is 2 times the budget. The house we rented in New York doesn't have laundry or bathroom, so it's not appropriate. So we need to rent our house, find a new nanny, rent a house in New York that is appropriate for an 18-month-old. We went to New York last week, and it was like, oh my God, yeah, we'll go to New York, no big deal. And then we get there with our son, and it's, we're all sharing a room, and he's right in the middle of our bed. And okay, I woke up 4 times that night. I guess this is the new reality, is that he's sleeping in our bed with us. And not only that, it's like, let's take him outside. And, we go downstairs, and it's like Manhattan, like crazy. The person that we were renting the house from is, there's an amazing park out front. So I'm like, there's a park, but it's like a park in New York. So it just was so overwhelming to go there. And, we're opening in 35 days, and we don't have a nanny, we don't have a house, and we haven't rented our house. And so we're also managing a space we just opened 4 months ago that's just, right now, I think, hitting its stride. Is
that the new space in Toronto?
It's a new space in Toronto. So it is intense. It's just a lot, playing entrepreneur with children is hard mode. It's like just a different, it's not even the same.
It's like,
thing.
That's like, it's the secret mode. It's like secret hard mode. It's like, I say all the time that like the first 2 years of having our first daughter, I like cried myself to sleep trying to figure out like how to find reliable help. Like nannies wouldn't come on time, and that seems like no big deal. But when you have meetings at 7 a.m. and you're like sweating because you're breastfeeding and like all of that other stuff, it's like, I can't not shower to like all day today just because you couldn't be here on time, and then not have a mental breakdown halfway through my day.
Yeah, and it sounds like you guys have the opposite problem, which is you have a nanny that is spectacular and you love, and you just can't get her to New York.
Yeah.
So we caught you on like of the roller coaster. You're at one of the like low moments where like everything's breaking.
Well, I mean, it's a mix.
Yeah, like, you're so excited, New York's coming up, and I'm like excited, just doesn't really feel like the top emotion, but it's there.
Yeah.
There's a lot. It's a lot.
But we are excited, and like the space is like spectacular, and we've been working at it for 2 years, and we're getting messages from influencers who, 4 years ago we reached out for the app and never got an email back, and now people are reaching out like, oh my God, can I come? And I get 100 emails a day, and so it's like, wow, this is really working. So there's excitement of like on the biggest stage, the largest city in North America, we're bringing our thing to go and be there. And so it's like massive adrenaline, like we were in New York last week also. And every night there was like someone inviting us to something and going to different Broadway shows and immersive theater and trying to get inspired. And so it's a mix of like, wow, there's so much excitement. Something for me that's new is like 5 years ago, I would have been obsessed with that and feeling the validation coming. And now I was saying yesterday to Em, like I'm like, oh my God, this is just a lot. I'd rather be at home with just us and our baby, like going to bed. It's just a total difference in like.
Well, when you wake up like 4 times a night, you're like, how early can I start? Sleeping?
Yeah. So it's exciting, the build and like what we're delivering, but the actual day-to-day of it is more like, oh my God. Like,
when's opening day of New York?
So May 5th, May 6th is like construction is ready and done. And then it's like, okay, guides in 5 days training, like morning to night. And then it's, kind of underground events, May 12th to 20th. And that's like friends of friends. We're not really open. You come in, we'll take everyone's phone and we'll run classes for training. And as we get to the tail end of that, it starts to be like, some media is coming in, bigger communities. And then, June 1st is like the launch. So it's coming fast
and super stressful, and you have a lot of problems to solve, and you're giving us a little bit of time right now, and I'm grateful for that.
Well, it's a good time to chat because this is like the real deal, It's like, hey, entrepreneurship, like and we only have one. Like some of my friends have 2 and 3 children, and so like we're playing on for a family. We're on easy mode because we have a nanny help. We don't have any grandparents around, and we're moving, so that's pretty hard, but. Yeah, it's like this is the real deal, like it's intense.
All right, Robbie and Emily, can you give us like the quick origin story and the why for Othership? Because I think it's a beautiful story from what I remember you sharing with me, and Robbie, especially your personal journey. So please tell us, like, how did we get to Othership, and tell us about Othership?
Yeah, I think just some interesting things that we don't normally talk about is our third date was actually at a bathhouse, like traditional Russian bathhouse in like a back alley. It felt like a erotic massage parlor when we were like pulling up. So it's kind of weird. Like Emily I was recently sober, and Emily had reached out saying like, hey, I listened to this health podcast and they're talking about ice baths, and I've like Googled it and found this place, we should go. And so we went. It was incredible. Like right away, when you start dating somebody, there's that like, oh, what am I going to say? Am I going to sound cool? I'm nervous. I should ask about this. Some people will go as far to I have my 10 questions that I'm going to use to make conversation. And so it was immediately in the ice bath, boom, like feeling alive together, and also like building trust and doing this thing that was challenging. And so then that became part of our ritual for, every week. We moved to San Francisco, we moved to Berlin, and we would be going to bathhouses, and Emily was supporting me to maintain sobriety. And I didn't want to be in restaurants and nightclubs. And so that was something we did and became a major part of our relationship. And when we moved back to Toronto after having been abroad for 4 years or so, and like one suitcase for each of us, living with a bunch of 22-year-old engineers. Emily was like, hey, I don't want to do this anymore. Let's like live in one city. I want to have a place and like actual stuff. And so we moved back to Toronto, and I was really nervous about kind of running into old friends that were struggling with drugs and alcohol. And so we built an ice bath. We called up a company and just said, hey, would you come up if we flew you up to Toronto? Have you been to Canada? Like, would you come up and build an ice bath with us by hand? And so we did that. And in our backyard every day, we'd have a fire going, and we would host people from the neighborhood. It was just free. And so, there was a WhatsApp group you could join when you came. And if any night or any time during the day, like we would be in our house and look outside, and people would just be out there using it. We'd go out for a coffee. And through that, we did it every night for a whole summer with our other 3 co-founders, and made about 300, 400 friends. And then as it got colder, it was just like, oh, okay, well, nobody wants to just do an ice bath in the winter with no way to heat up. So we converted our garage and like built it by hand from scratch, a sauna, an ice bath, a little app so that you could get in. And it was like a community space. And Emily was like the first GM. We worked on that together. We actually got engaged in that space also in the sauna. And so it was such a part of our early relationship. It was something we would do together all the time. It's where we met our friends. And so the engagement was a ball of ice with a ring in the middle. And so Emily was doing a massage of me in the sauna, and the ring melted into her hand. And so it's just that place is still open. Actually, it was initially called Inward. And so it was just a very special through line of our relationship from starting to date, from something we did socially, from something we did to build community, from something we did together, to then working together on this thing full time that we both really believe in. And it was in that garage that we started developing what makes Othership unique, which is the programming aspect and the classes. And so it was at a Valentine's Day session where it started. We had this idea of, you can actually, do cool programming. Like, nobody's on their phone. There's a captive audience. All the good norepinephrine, feel good hormones are running from the ice bath. And so the very first programming was a Valentine's Day class led by our co-founders. And it was, an ice bath with an eye gaze, a get out, and then a hug. Then everyone in the sauna doing guided massage for 3 minutes and sharing a story about your first date. And all of a sudden, all the couples are crying. This is insane. Like, what's happening here? This is a random garage and there's 4 people crying. And that New Year's, I think 12, 15 people had reached out saying like, I met my romantic partner. I made 3 new friends. This is my favorite place in Toronto. This changed my life. And so you don't hear that too often. And that's the time we both decided to quit our jobs and go full time and open a big studio. And also during that time, Emily had the idea. So that's Othership is one. It's really like a place to go to find connection and to process emotions. So you can think of it as like watching almost a Cirque du Soleil like performance while being part of group therapy. So it's really making emotional work like inspiring and fun, but also in a way that it feels kind of cool. It makes you feel like you're going to a space that's inspiring versus, traditional therapy, which can sometimes feel like an obstacle where there's friction. And that's combined with also recently we've started doing stand-up comedy nights and live music nights where we start with an ice bath. We'll have 2 comics come in. We'll have another ice bath. We'll have another 2 comics come in. So it's really blossomed into a community hub or container where there's social things happening without alcohol.
Has anybody really flopped in the comedy space where they just get booed out?
So far, so funny story on that. We started the comedy night and my co-founders are doing a laughter yoga, and we told the comics, they're like, hey, can we say anything? Like, we feel like Othership's like going to church. Like, I'm crying in here. Can I say anything? And we're like, yeah, you can say anything. And so the first thing is laughter yoga, where you look around and you laugh, but you fake laugh. And so you basically fake laugh as hard as you can until everyone's fake laughing for 2 minutes. And so we're doing this exercise, and it's a common connection exercise. First comic comes in and he goes, what the hell is this? It's just like, if I had an owner of a comedy club come down and tell the audience to fake laugh, they would boo me out of the space, And so it was really interesting because everybody is of the vibe that they're there to connect. Everyone's sober, whereas usually comedy happens in a bit of a dark club with a lot of alcohol. So it was really, people were just dying. And it was such a nice way to connect people. When you're laughing together, you feel better. So it worked. We left some time after for people to meet each other as well. So it actually turned out when we thought about it was, this is weird. Maybe it'll work, but it felt like, it could be cool. And so there's a lot of experimentation still happening. So I think there's these emotional classes, which are sort of our signature, the You and Me couples class, the navigating grief class, the gratitude class, the anger release class. Then there are more body-based classes, sound immersion, where you're seeing live performance. Then there's just coming to hang out. And then at night, we've started doing a lot of new stuff. Like this week, we had a quiet free flow with journaling and a live violin. So basically anything that you're seeing happen with alcohol in a city, we're trying to repurpose that in a new format without alcohol. So that's the vision for Othership. However, while this was starting, Emily had her own story and actually came up with the path where we work together, which is the Breathwork app. So maybe, Em, you want to talk about how that came to be?
Yeah, all overlapping in different ways. But another thing that we did to support Robbie's sobriety journey when he came back is do the Wim Hof style breathwork. So we were going to do the ice bath as part of it, but then there's also the breathwork portion. And we used to watch the exact same YouTube video every day. And it was this perfect 8 minutes. It was 2 rounds, upregulated breathwork on YouTube. And yeah, we do the same video every day. And so I just thought this would be so much more fun if we had like different music and, different facilitators. And it was a whole experience, sort of like the guided meditation apps have become. But this was like in 2017. So it was just a thought that I had and it never went anywhere. I tinkered with it in a few different ways. And then when we came back around when the pandemic started, we were offering these amazing hot and cold experiences in our garage. And all of a sudden, we got totally shut down. Like the pandemic started one day, and that it was just like things were building. Our community was getting hyped, and we were really on the up and up. And then one day, it was like, okay, no, I think we have to close our doors. But we still really wanted to have that community offering. But of course, you can't digitally offer hot and cold, unfortunately. So breathwork was the other thing that we had going on. And we just started naturally hosting Zoom. So for our community that came to Inward, every Sunday, we would get together and do a longer breath work, like a 40-minute style. And at first it was 20 people, and then it was 40, and then 70, and then over 200 were joining this one Zoom. And people started asking for the recording. Like, I would love to do this during the week. I would love to do a different version that's only 15 minutes, one that's down regulating, some that are up regulating. And I just thought, okay, well, maybe we could just host, like put it on a website and people could get a membership and they could do the practices throughout the week, and we would put the recordings from the weekend. So just using Kajabi made a simple web-based platform where people could access the sessions, and we started adding more and more content. And then overall, the feedback just kept being like, oh, I would love an app. Yeah, everyone just loves apps. So I would love if this was easier. I want it to be right on an app on my phone. So, okay, we'll figure out a way to build an app. And we found kind of an intermediary solution to build this app that was affordable for us. As you know, apps can be extremely expensive. So, we were able to do that. And it's just kind of evolved into the Othership Breathwork app, which is just a beautiful pairing with our in-person experiences, because you can come to the space and have these beautiful experiences, but you might not be able to go every day, and you might want to practice throughout the week at home. It's more accessible. You can take it with you anywhere and really have these same super powerful experiences at home and be able to regulate your nervous system the same way that you can through Othership's physical spaces. So yeah, it's a continued journey of still a work in progress. But
it's really lovely. No, it's great. I mean, like, I think the meaning behind it all and how it was a bit of like a natural progression in your lives makes it all that much more powerful in
Othership was your first kid between the two of you.
Yeah.
Definitely
right?
was.
Or Inward, I guess, but then Othership, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's the worst behaved one, for sure.
So speaking of how you balance kind of the demands of parenthood and the demands of growing businesses, how do you guys kind of decide what to care about in each moment? Like, are you guys kind of building swim lanes for yourselves, dividing and conquering and saying that's your arena, this is my arena, and like never the twain shall meet? Or is it more of like, bit by bit, we kind of bicker about it and decide in that moment who's taking what?
I think with our 5 co-founders, there's been a really natural separation of tasks. And we've definitely had coaching. Like, I think we really are intentional about these 5 relationships. And it's rare to have that many co-founders together and to make sure that connection, like with Robbie and I, but also with our other partners. And we work with another couple too, and our best friend. And so we just want to make sure that those 5 relationships are really strong. So we work with a coach, but we also do just have a very natural division of who does what. So I think that is really helpful because there's not a lot of like stepping on toes. And then if there ever is a crossover, just making sure to have really direct conversations about it, which we've also got coaching on over time to make sure that we deliver things in the right way.
How about parenting?
Yeah, that one's tough.
I always feel like I want a parent coach. I'm like, where are they? Do they exist? Can I have one? Please tell me how to handle this in this moment.
That would be great. I think because we're so early on still, like in the baby phase, definitely more on the woman. I don't know if that's not necessarily everyone's experience, but I think everyone can relate in a certain extent. So, I mean, you have the tools physically on your body to care
Well, and
for
you have the pressure and you're like getting ready. Like you have this whole 9 months where you're getting to know like kicking and sleep and wake patterns, and all of it's happening subconsciously. You're not like registering that that's what's going on. And then, yeah, like the baby comes out and you're like, duh, this is what's happening. Oh, I didn't realize I had to tell you about it. Like,
You have to tell me about all of it.
I do. Yeah.
Robbie, I remember we were talking right after, like right when you guys told us you were pregnant, and you're like, "What? Tell me, like, what did you learn? What did you know?" I was like, "You're on a 6-month delay. Like, you're just not going to be at the same spot as her." And I think one of the last times we spoke, you're like, "Hey, dude, I think I kind of feel that a little bit." I don't remember. Like, did we end up following up about that? Like, what's been your experience of like fatherhood and becoming a dad in the context of like just I said, you two are mom and dad to these businesses, but now you've got an actual human child. What's that been like for you?
I think the start was like I just feel the last 4 years it's like coffee, task list, let's go, and even if it's after work, I'm just still thinking about work, and it's like survival. This business is default dead. Paranoia, competition's coming, go faster. So it's like consistent fight or flight. And I think to start a business, that's just kind of what it takes almost all the time. And I have some regrets, not deeply held yet, but like, being in that state of mind, hanging out with an infant is not fun. And so I would be there for 10 minutes and just be thinking like I'd want to check my phone. And I'm like, I didn't enjoy it. I found it really boring, probably for the first year. And like, I love my son because it's like, there's like a familial connection, but in the moment I would just be like, oh, this is boring. And like,
Also blah. And please, can I not watch The Wiggles ever again? Yeah. And all of that's okay.
Yeah.
And totally so, but now I'm like, wow, if I wasn't working so hard, maybe I actually would have enjoyed that more and been more present. And I feel like, oh, I miss it. And so, not that I miss it, but I'm like, I'm just, it's now, like I want to work, and I wake up, and I used to just wake up and I'd have coffee and then I would just work 14 hours and like not really care. And I was kind of fine sacrificing all my friends. That went first. Really hard to have friends and be an entrepreneur. Then once we had become parents, that was like totally gone. Then health has like gone now also. I'm trying to do it, but just like, with these 2 openings back to back, last 6 months have been pretty awful. So it's like, okay, I can kind of work as much as I want, but not quite really. And it didn't bother me at first, but now I'm just starting to be guilty because like I want to spend time with my son and he's fun and it's like getting good. He's like he'll call me by name. He looks at me, he'll play with me. He laughs. It's like the cutest thing ever. And so like,
he's not a blob anymore. Yeah. And it gets exciting and you're like, oh, what new thing can I teach you?
Yeah.
So that
you have to slow down so much, to your point. Like I completely relate to like, it's boring. Like, what are we doing here? Like this thing just sits here and it's eating, it's sleeping, it's pooping, it's crying. And that's what it's doing. And like, it's still, it's your blood, it's your kid. You're like, oh, I want to be like so into this, but like, you have to slow down to this glacial pace of this human that is not really a person yet.
Really like the most active form of meditation. I was saying that the other day. It just feels like, okay, you're so in the sympathetic, like working, you're just like going a million miles an hour, and then you go down and you have to just like like moving this way here. It's all just like, how can you make that a full meditation to be fully present in it? And it's such a work in progress, but it's interesting to try to be there on that level.
It's so weird to think of like parenting itself as a skill. And then to think that like, as your child evolves and grows, that's the skill required from you has to evolve and grow. And I always felt like the most terrifying part of parenthood was that I could never be prepared enough to be successful. I was like, it wouldn't matter if I spent every like sleeping hour that my kid had reading every book I could get my hands on. I still wouldn't know what challenge my kid is going to face that I won't have like a toolbox to then just be like, oh, right, you're struggling with like sensory stuff, or you're struggling with, you know what I mean? Like, all of a sudden she like hated shoes for a whole week. And I was like, what do I do? I literally went insane. I bought her so many shoes. I tried to take her shoe shopping, only to find out some random person at a store measured her feet and she was an 8.5. They don't make 8.5s for children. That's not a thing. And so I'm like, of course she hates shoes because none of her shoes fit her. And so I started buying her 9s and everything was fine. But like, how would you know that?
You're not like, summarized in a little story about shoes.
Yeah.
It is.
It's maddening because they don't have like it's not that they don't even have the words. They have the words at a certain point, but then they don't have the understanding of their own body and the environment to be like, Mom, my shoes just don't fit me. That's why I don't like shoes right now.
Yeah. So we're jumping around in your journey. You're now new-ish parents. You kind of got 1.5 years under your belt, so you're not new parents anymore. But let's go back in time again. By the way, I loved the proposal story. That was new. I hadn't heard that before. Thank you for sharing that, Robbie. That's brilliant. And like, if anybody's listening and thinking about how to propose, a ring and an ice ball as part of like an ice massage, like that's a touch. That's probably like expert level proposal status, folks. So just, take notes.
Hold on a second, but you would never be able to handle me rubbing you with an ice cube. So
hold on. I cold plunge
minute.
now, and Robbie's my go-to for advice on plunging. So I could do it now, but
the second I touched you with an ice cube, you would freak out, and the whole thing would
like
be
a very small, very frightened girl. And
I always laugh because I like in the moment tried, because it was like such a beautiful situation, like so romantic, and I was like, oh wow, like so romantic, and Robbie was like so into it, and I was like, obviously tries to make it this erotic massage, and then he kind of like looks at me like like there's a ring in that ice ball.
I love that part of the story, and thank you for telling it, Robbie. And now I want to go back further in time. Can you two kind of give us your career narrative that got you to the place where you're like, okay, we're ready to start this thing? And I'd love, Emily, can you take us through like your career arc? What was the preface to the story where you two met at the weird back alley Russian bathhouse? Like, what came before that for you? And then Robbie, please take us through your journey after.
Yeah, I did a master's in nutrition communication to become a registered dietitian. So really my whole career has just been mostly about nutrition, but just like an obsession with health and wellness in general. So I think that led us there was just listening obsessively to all these different health podcasts and always trying to stay up to date on like what Rhonda Patrick's saying and what are all the different experts saying about the new health and wellness trends. But I was working really clinically before, just in a hospital, so completely different environment, and counseling people on nutrition 1-to-1. And I found working at Inward in our backyard just so rewarding, because you were giving people this experience. You weren't giving, you were just a bystander in the experience, but you were allowing someone to have this incredible shift right in front of you, that I was always seeking more of that connection. As a dietitian, I felt like, okay, I can give you these recommendations, and then I might not ever see you again. Like, I don't know if it worked for you. I don't know if it changed. I would hear through the grapevine, oh, so-and-so's like doing so well. They look incredible. Like you've really taken all your advice, but you just never see that. So you hope, you want to give someone that experience of like transforming their energy levels and how they feel, but you don't get that like internal satisfaction of seeing it through. So I found that with the sauna and ice bath, you're just, wow. Like I would watch people come in and they'd be so shy. Like everyone's so nervous, of course, at the ice bath, your first time, not really talking to anyone, like keeping to themselves. And then after you just get that huge rush and you feel so good and you want to talk to everyone. And so watching even that like emotional switch of like seeing them in their fully expressed self is so beautiful. I just found that part so rewarding and really wanted to be a part of it.
I love it.
I don't know if that answered the question
it makes
at all.
total sense.
It
makes total sense to be able to be a part of that journey now, and like people that come to space over and over again, and so you get to see them evolve, right?
Oh, it's so rewarding. It really
And I
is.
know
It
who
just
I'm
makes
texting next time I need nutrition advice. So now I didn't know
no,
that about you.
no way, not me.
Yeah, definitely. So Robbie, give us. I know this is not your first venture into entrepreneurship. So can you give us a little bit more of the journey that brought you here on your career?
Yeah, I've just built unsuccessful things for a long time.
That's how it works, right?
I've made all the mistakes. I worked in finance and kind of washed out. The hedge fund I worked at imploded. I just wanted to be rich, like very insecure. I wanted safety. I was like, oh, I want to have nice things so people will like me. Didn't work out, hated it. Then I was like, oh, I can make money fast in entrepreneurship. That's the move, like Facebook, this is around like 2009, 2010. And so I started a tech company in Toronto with a co-founder, grew it to 100 people. It was like relatively successful until it wasn't. It failed. $0 complete, lost everything I had, moved out of my apartment into like my parents' house. And at that time I was 28, just like I'm a failure. Like I tried these two things. I can't even go out for dinner with friends without getting like a split bill and just a sparkling water. And was struggling with drugs and alcohol. I then moved to Israel just to start from scratch and do hardware stuff there that was similar to the tech company I built. Tried 3 or 4 different things there. Again, like failure after failure. And I felt like, hey, I'm just not good. Like I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm making these wrong decisions. If I could only, I remember actually, I know you worked at Headspace, and like trying to apply for a job as like a content writer at Headspace, and like, oh, if only I could like get this job. And like, I just felt like, oh, I would never do it. I applied for an Uber GM, didn't get the job. I applied for it was a company called Hired, made it through the interviews. And I was just like, man, I'm not like good enough to work any of these jobs. And then I went to San Francisco and ended up working in crypto. And I started to realize like, wow, all these skills, like manufacturing, hiring, raising funds, selling, like I've actually done all this stuff. And I started to realize that like work wasn't about like following a checklist in investment banking. It was actually solving problems. And because I'd done all these weird jobs, one, I had to like get our equipment out of a data center. The company was going to be shut down, and like actually kind of steal it out of the data center and put it in another one. And just like being able to solve problems and like ask for help. I learned that skill and put that into crypto. I worked at Ethereum early, ended up working on the ecosystem development team. Financially was successful pretty quickly there, which helped me, one, learn that like, hey, work around people that are very passionate about what they're doing versus trying to make money. And when I started doing that, I started to have success. And this was, for Othership, it was just, hey, this was just something that like, this is an MVP, something we're really passionate about. And by that point, I tried so many different things, and I'd literally read, I don't know, 200, 300 books on entrepreneurship, like every single book. I've listened to every founder's podcast now. I'm just like obsessed with how do you go from 0 to 1? How do you run your business? How do you do operations? I also try and talk to like 3 new people a week. So, our friend Steven at Modern Animal was giving me help. The founder of Sweet Green was giving me help. The founder of Berries was giving me help. Founders of Soul Cycle were giving me help. And so the one things I've learned is like, don't be afraid to ask for help, and like over aggressively just ask and ask and ask. Instead of trying to solve certain problems, like own your product, know everything about it, be passionate about it, and that be unique in everything else, like how to scale your organization, how to hire, how to give out equity, how to deal with conflict. Like those are solved problems. And so how to figure out a lease, So now but the first thing I try to do is, who are the best 3 people in the world at this thing? And as your business grows, at first people are like, what are you talking about? You run a garage, like get out of here. But it's like having no shame, It's like when you're raising money, you're going to get 90 no's. Nobody cares. Nobody wants to work for you. And as it starts to get successful, then, I can get someone to answer my call and like be excited about what we're doing. And so that's the biggest learning I had in entrepreneurship, was just like, no shame, ask for help, take the rejection. And that's like the fastest way I've found to learn. So that's how I got here and became a brick and mortar entrepreneur in wellness with like literally no experience. Was just like asking for help and finding good people who'd done it before. And so we designed the product, and the experiences, and are obsessed with that, but everything else around it, we just asked for help.
So I think there's a segue there to like how you're defining success, because like there's you've obviously figured out, like Robbie, I heard you developed the like hack to like business success is asking for help and being just unabashedly unashamed of like, I don't know how to do this, and I'm definitely not the best person to do it, so I'm going to go find the best people and ask them, and I don't care if they give me the time of day or not. I'm just going to keep asking until I get the help I need. I love that, and I think there's no question that has contributed significantly to the success that the two of you have had and the success of Othership. And I'm curious about how you define success in the context of Othership and also being parents now, and those two journeys that are now intertwined. And maybe you talk about your 17-hour days before, like how did you define success before you were parents, and now how do you define success? Is it the same, or has it changed?
I mean, I think it's going to shift so much. Like, I think in the first year, it's just such a whirlwind. I think how we internally were defining, I wouldn't even say success. I'm not sure I really think about parenting in that light yet. I think we're not really even there, like more of a caregiving stage that we were in, and just being able to spend that time. I think we both thought we were so fortunate to work from home. And so then we can go down and have lunch with him. And I mean, obviously I took some time off in the beginning, but we were still here in that house with him all the time. And I just thought that that was the most fortunate thing, and really like what he needs in this moment, just to have us like our undivided time and attention. So just trying to give him that and be really present for him. We've been so fortunate to take him on different trips with us and give him different life experiences early on. And I'm not sure what else I would add to that. What do you think, Robbie? I think also there's just no like perfect balance, and just accepting that some days it's going to be harder to spend time with him, and there's just no such thing as balance, and you're just kind of trying to do your best with all the different ways that you can spend your time, and trying to make sure that, he is our number one priority. And Othership is really important to us as well.
I don't have any systems. I don't know. Like, when we first did, like, I'm going to be a good dad. I'm going to interview all the dads. Like, who's the best 3 dads? Like, let me get the tips and the books.
You put the list together.
Put a list together, started. And I was like, man, I'm so busy. Like, I'm not going to interview all these dads. And so I just didn't do it. And I've been on some like dad podcasts and stuff. And I'm like, I don't know, man. I don't think that good. Like, I'm not so involved. And that's the reality. Is like, I'm here at home and I love my son, but I'm just not. Like, Emily does the majority of the stuff. And so I feel guilty about it. And then I'll try to contribute financially. So like cover support, babysitter, nanny, food, and like try to support that way. But I just don't feel called to like the caretaking piece. But then I'm like, oh man, I'm not like pulling my weight. And then I just feel shitty about it. But so I think I'm like, I'll be better when it's more like interactive. But and then even thinking like, hey, am I responsible for my son, or is it like he's going to learn on his own? And I read some, where to get my parenting info. It's like in little like Instagram tidbits. Like, now they target me because they know like I'm looking at baby stuff all the time. Like, that's kind of what I'll stop and look at. Like, I get so excited to get them toys. Like, we buy them forts and like we see stuff. We get targeted. I don't even use Instagram that much, but then I'll see like, rough and tumble playtime at night helps them put to sleep. So now I'm like, I'm rough with my son. That's like what I heard. Or it's like, I read it's really good to leave your kids like we had neighborhoods growing up, and to like let them be in danger outside. And like, that's how they would grow, is like roaming the neighborhood with a pack of kids.
Clear, he's not doing that yet.
But,
that's how my sister
I want to see the pack of like 1.5-year-olds roaming the street.
They can't walk yet, but they're terrifying if you put enough of them together.
So I feel like my coach or therapist was like, just tell him you love him. So I feel a lot of times if I'm with him, I'm like, hey, like, I love you. This is my heart. And like, I care about you. I'll say like really nice words to him. And I try to do that more frequently. Like, kind of every time I'm with him, if I'm holding him and stuff, I'm just like, hey, just so you know, your dad loves you. And maybe that's enough. I really like feel like I'm like the low rookie, and I just haven't had like the bandwidth to try. But like, we also, like, he's one, like the biggest activity is like taking him to swimming lessons. So it's not.
Yeah.
Like, are we teaching him stuff? Are we supposed to be? I don't know. Like, we're not sending him to school. Like, I don't know. So yeah, it's a big I don't know, but I feel like we're here and he knows that we love us, and so maybe that's enough. Feels like enough in my mind, but
Full disclosure, I think Jason felt that way for a really long time. Like, we would get into it because I'd be like, I'm reading all of these books, I'm doing all of this stuff. And like, then you step in, but you're not like following what I'm reading or like my strategy. And you want to be involved, but you don't want to take direction from me. So then you need to read the book. And then we can talk about the book. And then we can talk about like, what is our strategy collectively? But don't show up and be uneducated and think that you're going to define what's going on here. And then it got to a point where, unfortunately, we lost the twins. We delivered them at 20 weeks. And so then I was just out of commission. Like, it was time where he had to pony up, and that was it, you know? And I mean, she was older. She was already 3 at the time. So it wasn't necessarily the same of like, oh, infancy, which is hard in a different way. But at the same time, I think, you know, having that forcing function has been insane for him as an experience. And he's really rose to the occasion, and it's been phenomenal to watch. And I think, you know,
I think
it's
we're all
okay.
rookies, Robbie. So like, or
Yeah.
below rookie. Like, there's no cheat code or like hack to get better at it. It's literally reps, right? Like, you just the more time you spend, and everybody's kid is different, and everybody's journey with parenting is different. So it's not like you could go and be better at it. Although I will say that if Emily, you also read the books, and Alyssa definitely read the books, like, you guys are for sure better at it, and you probably spend more time at it. But like, it's okay. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I think if you're telling him you love him and you hold him, man, then you're way ahead of a bunch of people. Like, that's good. That's really good.
Yeah, it's been nice. Like, if Emily could easily be like, hey, this isn't fair, and be upset about it, and she never really says that and just does most of the work. And like, because of that, I can work harder and be more focused on our business. And so you mentioned the question of like, are you bickering? And like, we're not really bickering, but it's clearly unfair, and Emily's doing most of the work. And so I'm just lucky.
I think also, though, you take full ownership of that, and like, even admitting like, hey, I feel guilty because I'm not spending the time, is like, at least, you know, it's nice to hear that you're not like, Robbie takes ownership of what he's not doing and how can he compensate in other ways. And so even for our relationship, that makes it a lot easier, because you can see how having a kid just like really changes the dynamics of what everyone is doing. And there's so many things that can go like unsaid. So just addressing them directly has been really important for us.
It's just like, you can't, like, there's no escaping it, you know?
Yeah.
And it's just like, so, cause like, I don't know, we fought like a handful of times in like 6 years before we had a child, and we're both pretty relaxed in terms of like personal relationships. It's changed in work relationships with the intensity of work for me lately, but traditionally have been like, you know, we never really had any altercations. And if there was something, it was just like, oh, like, we just were very compatible. And then once you have kids, like, you're just not, because someone has to get up at 5:30.
So Alyssa, give us the rapid fire questions for Robbie and Emily.
Okay. So what are things that people say about building a business that was like some of the worst advice you've ever gotten, where you like totally thought at first, like, oh, I wonder if that's right. And then it turned out to be complete bullshit.
I have one.
You go.
You go first.
Yeah.
Like, work-life balance is important and possible. Especially if you're a founder, that like, oh, you really need to care for the employees, like that's just impossible. And if somebody's asking for that and we had this and we cared about all this stuff and the culture, and like, it just doesn't work. And someone who comes into an interview and says, oh, like, what are your thoughts on burnout? Like, that's just not a fit. And what I've just seen is like, there's no way around it being really hard and like kind of sucking. And you have to just give up everything to do it. And like, the people who succeed are like the ones who have like a chip on their shoulder. They really have to do it. They like strive in like chaos. But the advice that like, oh, your early team, you need to care about culture, is not, I just haven't seen that to be true. And by culture, I mean, like, look, everyone can be psychos, but they're all psychos together. And so that is the culture. It's like, we're all like obsessed with this thing. But like, the idea that, oh, culture is work-life balance in a startup is, I think it's completely wrong.
What about you, Emily?
I don't know if I can think of like an exact example off the top of my head, but I feel like in the realm that I work is mostly in the digital space, and there's just, I don't want to say like it's all dudes, but there's a lot of dudes that try to like mansplain different things that you might be experiencing in the tech side. And so, yeah, you just kind of have to evaluate people's experience, because a lot of them speak with a lot of authority, like, oh, you're doing this wrong. And it's like, am I, or are you not very experienced in this thing? So, yeah.
Oh, yeah,
So-
I got another one on that. We had an investor who, not an investor in us, but like potential investor, and was like, you need to figure out paid ads. You need to raise money and like just scale paid ads now, or this is never going to go anywhere. And like, that just never worked for any of these content-based apps. And it was just a bad strategy to try to figure out like Facebook and Meta ads at like that scale. And like we would have done that, we would have been bankrupt and out of business, and some other competitors have like gone that route. And so with authority, like you need to hire a head of growth internally, pay them like $500,000 a year and spend 50 grand in ads a month, or like you're going nowhere. And I was like so hurt by that. And I was like, man, we're never going to measure up. And if we would have done that, we would have bankrupted the business. So that was another one where like, just if people come with like, I know everything, this is my authority. That's
Yeah.
It's intense when people do that.
Yeah. How do you guys caffeinate?
In all the ways.
We got a new one now.
We got a new one, but I'm still
Okay.
on the old ones too. So now I'm just adding. Robbie, go for your new obsession.
A lot. Like caffeine's my only addiction that I allow now. And so like no other substances at all, but like caffeine, like full on, let's go, love it so much. And I try to, like, I go pretty manic and I'll have a level. Like I'll know when I'm at like 97% mania. Like right now I'm probably at like 92.
Is
Or,
it the
like,
hand
97.
sweats? I get the hand sweats. I like start to like actually, I'm like, okay, I'm sweaty enough, so then I have to stop.
It's more like nervous system. So I'll just start being like, we're building religions, the craziest thing ever, like so passionate about it, but to the point where it sounds insane. Or like I just get really angry. Like I'll start losing my temper about things that aren't a big deal. And then I'm like, okay, I need to like take a weekend off.
Yeah.
So usually it's like, green tea, single shot Americano, double shot Americano, multiple Americanos, green tea in the afternoon. And I was like, okay, like it's too far. But so recently we've started yerba mate, and there's a new company called
I'm
Matena.
so
It's
there
like a
with
D2C.
you. Obsessed.
Yeah, so we like last month have like really reduced the coffee intake, and just like the gourd, you can fill it up like 15 times with a bit of lemon. And so I like just having something to continuously drink. And I've
Watch out though, the mate is way more caffeine than the coffee.
But I don't feel as crazy.
It's
like
smoother.
If I
It's smoother, but man, it'll get you. Watch out for it.
So anyway, it just cycles, and it's been for 4 years of like, eventually I need to take a break, and it becomes too much, which I'm like getting close now. And I know when it's bad because I also won't eat all day. And then I'll just like, when it's at its worst, it's like first thing I want to wake up, don't eat all day, giant pizza at night, which I did last night. And
Robbie, you are
the health
preaching
thing
to the
really
choir
has-
here. Like the only reason I don't act like that anymore is because I get pregnant. And then I'm like, well, gotta take a break. It's like
pregnancy is a great reset. It really is.
It is.
Robbie's more like with the addict mindset about it. Like it really builds, and then he has to go cold turkey for a long time. I'm just more consistent.
If only we could figure out how to make men pregnant just for a little bit, you know?
Really would.
both used to also
I wanna
smoke
carry on,
vapes.
Yeah, the pregnancy got me
we
off
would,
the
like,
vape.
heavy. But not like to smoke for like focus power, you know, like just be sitting at the desk, like you
Just
can't,
like
it's so hard to
keep you
drink.
focused. Yeah. Right. It's like
2
just to
p.m.
like
would
Fidget
come.
spinner.
2 p.m. would come, and like, okay, I don't really want to have caffeine after 2 p.m., but like, boom, vape, and then vape, like one breath in vape, one breath in air, and just Emily, we used to take videos of me at the computer, just like mouth breathing so hardcore, like secret videos, and I would just be,
I still have the
like
best
I was
video of all time.
like fully sprinting, just like sending emails, like power emails.
Have you guys seen those like weird little whistle things? They're like
Yeah.
they're like the breathwork necklaces. I feel like you need
Yeah,
one
they're
of those.
legit.
Oh, you
No, they're
tried
legit. I
it.
used to
You tried it.
try them. You know, at the end of the day, also we used to have all the morning routines of like, oh, do all the things, the stretching and the meditation, and like honestly, now it's just like the morning routine is like coffee and work, and like you just have to do the work. And so
Yeah.
I kind of
Well,
don't
kids will
even-
do that to you. You're like, I slept 4 hours last night and it wasn't even consecutive.
That's it. You know, I had a meditation practice for probably 10 years, and since being a parent, I don't meditate anymore, because it used to be in the morning and like kind of wake up like, oh, what do we do in coffee? Like, yeah, well, meditation. Now there's
Oh my
the
God,
gym.
I have to tell you this. Okay, so then you have a 4-year-old and all of a sudden you hear this weird breathing next to your bed and you're like, oh shit. And then you open your eyes and there's this kid standing there and you're like, hi. Oh, please don't hit me. How are you this morning? And then it's like, is she going to scream in my face? Is she going to hit me? Or is she going to be like really pleasant? Like sometimes she'll have a book in her hand and she'll be like, Mom, I want to read to you. And I'm like, oh, thank God. Okay.
Kind of just sounds like it gets harder, to be honest. Like I don't, you know, like it's just every age we found that you ask someone, there it's like never the right age. Like it was like when we started, that was another thing. It was like, oh, just get to 3 months, it's amazing. And then at 3 months, it's kind of the same. It's like, oh, 6 months, oh, 1 year. And then like, you know, talk to the 2-year-olds, like, oh, I just heard when they like can put up their own pants and are potty trained. Then the 4-year-olds, the parents like, oh, when they just go to school. And then like the 7-year-olds are like, oh, when they're 10. And so it's never, no parent is like, this is a couple have said that, but for the most part, it's generally just like a complaint.
To me, it's like such a similar skill set to starting a business, because it's like, is it ever easy? No. Is it every phase has its moments where it's rewarding. And if you celebrate the rewarding moments of that phase enough, then it gets easier, because at least you're learning how to manage every stage as it progresses. You know what I mean? It's like, well, you're opening your second one now, right?
Third.
But third. But you opened, the first one was the hardest that you opened, right? But every single one
Sounds like
that
New
you
York
open is
might
a
be
little bit
harder than
different.
either Toronto location to me.
Maybe.
It's international,
like,
right?
You know, it's like as we.
But there's parts of it that are regimental where you're like, oh, okay, I'm less intimidated about building a team or training them. Like you already kind of know the script for some of it. It's kind of like that, where it's like, yeah, okay, I know about the shoe thing now. So put that in my toolkit. And what things I don't know, I have less anxiety about now. Whereas whenever it was like 1 and 2, I had so much anxiety, like crippling anxiety about like what was next that I wasn't going to be ready for. And now I'm like, okay, I know I'm not going to be ready for it, and that's okay. And I also know that I have the skills as an individual and a parent and a mom to figure it out. It's like learning how to learn is
if
really
I had to pick 2
transition.
people who had the skills to figure it out, Robbie and Emily, you'd be high on my list.
Yeah.
You guys are fairly resourceful. Alyssa, I think there's 2 last rapid fire questions. So
There are.
Let's hit them with them.
Okay. Out of the 2 of you, who is super neurotic about getting your inbox to 0?
Robbie.
Mine's at like 560. And I can't get it to 0. But it's like kind of that's like
but Robbie's more obsessed with like the idea of someday it would be at 0.
Except like it's at like 440. That's reasonable for me. But I can go for like 2 days. I can be off email. Like I was in New York last week and like 580 just like that. And if I'm not on it, I just have so much of my role is community building, dealing with investors, I oversee so many parts of the business. And so, you know, 200 emails a day is like pretty common. And so if I go we went to Costa Rica for a vacation, and I couldn't even enjoy the vacation because I don't have my phone on, but I'm just thinking about like, oh my God, when I open it, like, oh my God. And so I feel like a level, if it's at like 440, like, oh, okay, things are good, you know? And then when I know it's going up there, which is bad because that's not how you should feel as a CEO, but it just means we're understaffed and I need to get an assistant. And I don't know, how do you feel about it?
I don't get as many emails as you do, so I don't tend to feel that overwhelmed about the inbox yet. It's not my main source of stress like it is for you.
One funny thing we started doing, which we're doing tonight, so everyone does our one-to-ones via Loom. It's like my favorite thing in the world because you can just watch updates in 2x speed, and like I'll just sit. And so now tonight we're having a date night where we just watch everyone's looms from the team, and that's like our fun thing is like on the big TV. Just it's like, you know, I'm like paranoid, neurotic, like we're default dead, we need to go. And so watching that, it's like, oh, I can relax, everyone's doing stuff. So it just really helps me to feel better to like see the daily updates. So that's now our date night to do it together.
I love it.
What's the most recent event that caused you individually to really admire the other one?
That's such a nice question. I forget what like triggered it, but I remember thinking the other day, like, wow, Robbie he's such a visionary. I mean, he really like is managing so many different parts of the business, and just watching him like really thrive as the CEO, like he's truly incredible. And so it makes me really proud to like see all the things that he's doing. He's supporting everyone on the team. He's like leading just 1,000 different things that, you know, I couldn't even keep in my head at one time. And it just, it's really impressive to watch, and like, he doesn't get enough just credit for it. So yeah, it's really nice.
I made the whole podcast worthwhile, just that comment. So that was really nice.
I love what this question brings out for people. It's so sweet. Every time I ask it, I'm like, okay, so you guys go have fun.
Yeah, you guys are going to have a great date night now after this.
Yeah.
What
watching
about you,
Lou.
Robbie?
Like, yeah.
I thought I worked hard my whole life. I was like, I'm a hard worker, you know, like that's my identity. I crank. And like even every business, like in banking and in startups. And then I watched what it's like being a mom is, and I'm like, man, I'm a nothing. Like I'm like a 5% of the, like it was. I've never seen the demands of what a child is, and I just was like even the second night, I remember like he's just crying. I'm like, man, like we're responsible. I'm like sleeping on the floor of the hospital, and so just see Em like step up and do that role, like never a complaint. And I kind of don't really like those tasks, so it's hard for me to imagine enjoying that. And I just watch her like coming to New York with like, she brought him flight herself, came in on Wednesday, booked group tattoos of the Othership logo. Show the logo.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so our whole team got the logo tattooed and booked it. Brings the baby, you know, Onyx to the tattoo parlor. He's in there hanging out. Hip hop music's playing. He's crying. She's holding him. She's sick. Can't come out. We're like staying in some random house where we bring him. He's losing it. And I'm just watching like, holy shit. I can't even believe you're here, that you like want to do this. And like, you know, next night, super dressed up for dinner, like interacting with like press and people. So I just think it's so hard to even do my job, and I'm doing like 5% of the work. And so to watch her like as a mom, it's pretty amazing. Like never, just to do it without ever a complaint, and like to see how much she loves him also is like really inspiring. It's like to see pure love in our lives, especially as we age. We don't have that much opportunity for that. And so to see how they like look at each other, and like, you know, he's like, they're like one body. Like he's, it's in the morning and he's watching TV. Like we kind of let him watch a little TV in the morning, and I'll try to like come to hug him, and he's just like, he just wants his mom so bad. And to see how much he loves her, how good of a mom she is, it like really sets the tone of like what it means to be a family.
I mean, I love that question too, because it's amazing the things that we hear, and you two are good parents, great business people and entrepreneurs, and just like a delight to know. And so we're grateful for your friendship, and this is just a great place to end. So thank you for being on Frank Growth. And it's okay that you don't have time for friends. Consider us your friends, and you never have to call or text or write.
We're really low maintenance friends, yeah. I promise.
We're on the list of friends, and we never have to talk, and it's fine.
Yeah, seriously. I prefer it that way. I like collect low maintenance friends like they're Pokemon cards. I'm like, yeah, and then you sit Dusty on this shelf, and whenever we need each other, we're there, you know?
Thank you both so much for being on Frank Growth and being here with us. And we just can't wait to see New York, Othership, and everything you're about to do is awesome. So thank you again.
Oh, thanks so much. And thanks for all your support along the way. It's been amazing to meet both of you.
We love you guys so much. And if you're ever like, I'm going to pull out my hair from parenting, ask me. I'm here. I will do the research so you don't have to, I promise.
Maybe it's your calling. You should start the coaching.
Maybe. I don't know what credentials I have, but
you have a
There's
child.
probably like a
Motherhood.
parenting app to be built, a parenting app and like systems to be built for sure.
Yeah,
right?
the
Like,
parenting
That's true.
systems.
Now we're coming up with business ideas. Well, that's the show. We did
Yeah,
it. We got a whole
it is.
business right here. Thanks, guys.